old records are difficult for us to locate that. We were working on for the new contracts and the language in the contracts. For the new contracts that are let, that is a requirement to make sure that the records are maintained or turned over to DOE, upon termination of your contract. But it wasn't in the older ones.
Well, what about, how long are the contracts retained saying, well, we have this subcontractor working here? I mean, is there a time limit for how long is the contract? Because they can provide proof that they work, say, for Shaw. I work for Shaw from 52 to 70, 52 to 55, and we built this building. They go back and look, and they don't find it. They don't find the actual contract saying that Shaw did that work, and they can make that connection. But there's that gap right there because they don't have a contract for the contractor.
Yeah, and that's something that we struggle with. Sometimes that information is there, sometimes it's not. Now, in terms of recreating the original contract, if the contract isn't there, we can't recreate it. But there are other things that we can do to try to establish that subcontractor was on site. A lot of times, we'll find project or engineering files, and that from that, it'll say this group was doing the work, even though we don't have the actual formal contract. If it's if it's in the project or engineering file, we'll put it down. And we've created lists at some of these sites, and wherever we can, if we find a collection, this list, the subs that we're working on this, we'll go through it. We'll set aside some money and set aside some people and kind of pile through. Sometimes it'll take a few months because we're just going through boxes of records, pulling it, looking through, and anytime you see a sub year, we'll catalog a number of things in a spreadsheet, so then we'll be able to check those spreadsheets. So I don't know that that's exactly the answer you were looking for. I wish we had all of the original contracts, especially historically.
Well, old records is difficult. The new process is a little bit different. That's how I said before. We have to be creative in ways, looking for visitors logs or all kinds of logs and things like that. Or a facility that had an operational log or something. So there are a lot of things that we try to do to piece it together for the old ones. And so we're saying that it could have been a lot better. It wasn't. So we have to do all these things.
I brought this up because, I've been working on this for a number of years, and I met a woman that worked in the Albuquerque operations office, and we kind of talked about that. But that was one of the questions that came up at the meeting, how long are contracts retained, so we can show that somebody worked there. But this workaround, at least that answers that question, so thank you.
There was a question here, there, and there.
I have a question. Do you have records of the logs that were used to sign in at the guard shacks, like a dial ordinance plan?
Those are records that we have sometimes. Sometimes we have those records, and they provide valuable insights, because it might show that a person who's trying to get an employment, DOE employment verification, they really weren't. They would work for others. They weren't really working on DOE projects, but they came over for a meeting or something like that. And in some cases, it would actually show that they were, DOE people, but they were visitors or logged into that particular facility.
Or for a subcontractor was coming through, and you have to sign in.
We've put the word out complex-wide that we love that. I mean, the problem is, I think the retention for those is, 3 years, 5 years, something like that. I mean, typically the reason we have those is they got thrown in a box, put in a corner, and never looked at again, which is great. Usually we hate that, but in those situations, it's great, because otherwise they would have been destroyed. So anytime that we know that we have those, or that we come across those, we'll do the same thing. We'll create an index, and some of them, it might be a vendor that was only there once, but if you're working on a project and have a temp edge, you might have signed in every day for a period of months, and then come back on a project, a year later and signed in again every day for months. So if we have that, which most of the time we don't, but when we do, we log that, the names, the name of the contractor, the days that they signed in, because we know that 250 days sometimes is a big number, and that will get them toward it.
Well, what I'm trying to prove is that these people work for the subcontractor or on the thing, and one of the guys suggested give a freedom of information on a sign-in sheet for the
At Iowa in particular, I do not. I'm almost 100% positive we do not have.
But I'm going to try.
If you,
I have two guys that work for this company.
We have,
both died of cancer.
believe me, we have looked for that type of stuff everywhere, and certainly Iowa is one of the places we have, sometimes less records than other places. We would love it. So.
Oh, yeah, but
there was one question back here.
Yeah, very quickly. I've had a couple of people ask me, and as long as I go through Paducah or Department of Labor, whoever I need, is the sky the limit as far as records? I speak specifically with an OSHA record or possibly a record that was written in incident command from a spill. I know a couple of cases that people have told me that the spill that I cleaned up over here, it's written down, you had an incident commander. So could I, as long as I go through these folks, can I say reasonably that we could get those records?
If they exist, but certainly if you,
or is
the
it
main
just,
thing is to certainly to request it and provide as much specific information as you can in terms of where they believe the spill was and the dates for that information. Makes it a little bit easier.
okay.
And since you're talking to people that were actually involved, how were you organized at the time? If they know, it might say I was in department X,
Sure,
Y,
sure.
or X, Z came over and they
Yeah.
were the ones that did the actual cleanup for us, or something like that. As much information as possible that would help us kind of target such
Okay,
a search.
all right.
But we
Thank you.
can't, I wouldn't say sky is the, we find everything that we can find,
But I
but
didn't
it's
say
not always there. Yeah, I just want, I wish.
But that stuff's sent to the Department of Labor and put in their case file.
It is, but the more we find out on the front end, we wouldn't know we're not going to be able to search every spill and incident for every individual, but if there's some indication that you were in a certain area or part of a certain, cleanup team or a part of an incident, we will, make every effort to search
Sure.
for that incident. So it does help, and you're right, it should end up going to DOL, but the more we get on the front end, the better we'll be able to search
that's good
for
to
those
know.
You
records.
need to request a copy of the case file as an authorized representative or claimant, so they can see if there is something in their records that the DOL got from them.
Questions on that?
Okay. I know at least for the Hanford site that they had a form of reporting, a daily reporting that went out from the command center. And originally it was teletype and it progressed to computer. And I know that there was a log for incidents, accidents, and off-normal occurrences. And it's coded, and the coding would change from time to time. There was an index of coding. Are those reviewed to look for things when the claimant says, I had this incident, I was involved in this, when we can't find it anyplace else? Are those, because it was coded reporting for something that happened on the site that wasn't supposed to happen. It would list a number of people involved. It would use the code for the area, the code for the type of incident. And the only reason I know this is from my accident in 2002 is they kept referring to this incident report.
If this is information that the worker provided, the claimant provided, then certainly when you're doing your searches at the different locations, you're searching for incident reports or certain kinds of reports to see if these things pop up. That should be a part of this overall, looking for documents. That
Check, and I don't know, again, I don't know whether there's, a lot of times there'll be multiple ways to get at something, or there'll be certain records that are, they'll check first, but I can certainly get an
that's
answer
one
on
of the
whether
things-
that's something. Yeah, I know incident and accident reports is something that
When a group's going to
we
do a
look
review,
for.
that we try to work with them initially. The site will, on word searches, if you're looking for certain kinds of things, here are keywords that will help you in those searches. So we certainly
Because
should
the
be-
line of coding I found for my chemical accident was exactly that. Until I found the exact procedure it was written from the site, I couldn't even figure out from the current procedure manual what the code was for what happened, because they would change the index key from time to time. And so there was this teletype line of code that would go out, and it was intentionally coded, and it went to DOE headquarters.
Yeah, and all of the sites should have something similar to that in
But
terms of
the
accidents.
employees' names are not linked to that. It's an incident number, and then that incident number,
But that number
at
would
least
have more
once goes-
information. It may have the information about the individuals or the department or
Job
whatever
titles,
that would be involved with that. There should be
It's not in
something.
the incident. It's the initial code line.
No,
only
not from the
lists a
code.
number.
Not from the code, but the other information that would direct a person to a certain
So
report.
saying you got
That report, as you
couple things
go keep
together.
going down, should provide some additional information or insights.
But those were headquarters records, and you still have those going back to the time of teletype, right?
Not necessarily. For some of the organizations, those things might exist, and some of them don't. But so if we had the information, we did the search, we would certainly look for those things. But I'm saying that some sites and some departments and some time frames are better than others. So some things are more complete than others. But we're going to try to. These guys are here tomorrow as well. We're going to try to move quickly so that
Okay.
I don't take away all the students' time. But was there a final question or something?
Are you responsible for btcomp.org? That's apparently something has been created that has the contractors and subcontractors that DOL uses, but it's not available to the public.
I would have to ask DOL about that, what that, it doesn't ring a bell with me.
Is it the BT Mag? That's not part of the
No,
Building
btcomp.org.
I think that is, but I don't know. You really have to ask DOL. I think that is there's a subcontractor for
Yeah.
DOL that put together that database, but DOL would be a.
Okay, maybe we'll move on. The colored facilities, we have responsibility for researching that, and the link was there. What I should have said when I started the presentation is that we looked back over what we had provided, and we updated a couple of things, and so this looks a little bit different, and we'll make sure that we'll be giving her the revised one, and if need to, we will also email them out to other individuals. This one is a secure electronic records transfer system, something that we're extremely proud of. It is a system, and Greg, maybe you want to talk about it. Greg was one of the main architects for this one. It's going to help us quite a bit.
Sure. I mean, I'll be quick. It's because there's a huge amount of PII, personally identifiable information. People's social, medical records, all that stuff that are going back and forth. It's tremendously important to protect that. So we started out, we sent a lot of paper. Then we moved to compact discs. But those, we password protected them, but there's a difference between password protection and encryption, in terms of who got, basically I've been told that any sort of, 12-year-old computer hacker can get through password protection, whereas encryption's a little bit, that's pretty tough. So then we went to these encrypted thumb drives, and we're FedExing them back and forth. But now what we have is a web-based system with two-factor authentication, so you have to have your password, which and you have this token with a randomly generated number, and you link those together, and there's all these things. So it's a secure system. DOL, NIOSH, and DOE are all on it, and so it's just to transfer information back and forth. So DOL and NIOSH can make the request to DOE instead of going out in a FedEx and going through the mailroom and losing a week there. It's they hit the button, we see it on our end. And we get going, and then on the way back, we can upload it. It's all encrypted. It's secure information, and it's instant that it's back. And it also just makes it easier for us to manage. There's nothing that's lost in the mail. There's nothing that's sitting in the mailroom. There's you see it when it shows up, and if for whatever reason you don't start working on it or don't see it, the record's there that it came in. So everything's transparent. We should be working on it instantly. DOL and I should get the returns back instantly, and
so this was
it's just
a
a good way to do things.
Major improvement in our operations. And what Greg didn't tell you is about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a breach in terms of some documents that we had with PII information on it. We were sending it from one location to another one using UPS or FedEx, I forget which one it was. And there was a disk inside, and that disk was lost. And it was one of the worst nightmares of my life at DOE because all my programs were shut down. I couldn't transfer any documents on the EEOICPA side, on the former worker side. I had to write a million reports to Congress as to what happened, why it will never happen again, and so forth. And so we love these programs. We want to keep documents moving. We don't want to make any mistakes because I'm telling you, it's not just things that we're making up because we like to do things and make them complicated. But if there is a breach, it is a serious problem. Because we don't want to breach anybody's personal information for all these crooks out here today. So we'll go to the next one. The next one. Great. We'll go to the next one.
Sorry.
This is information you can find on our webpage. Here's some documents that we generated. It might be helpful for some of you that may be new to the program. It has information specific about EEOICPA and our program and the role of the Department of Energy, about the former worker program, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then 851 is a pamphlet that talks about doing work safely and worker rights and so forth at the site. So we're doing the right things for protecting the workers, while they're doing the jobs now. So that'll be good information for you. In terms of outreach, we have a number of things going on. In terms of outreach, we have the town meetings, other things that we partner with Department of Labor and 911.